Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive.
Excited to be here.
Today we're going to be diving into the world of TypeScript.
Ooh, interesting.
This is a topic that you might be interested in if you are working on large-scale web dev projects.
Yeah.
Or, hey, maybe you're just curious about what all the buzz is about.
Mm-hmm.
Our main source today is this excerpt titled Pasted Text.
Okay.
It seems to give a pretty comprehensive overview of TypeScript, and it actually reveals some interesting nuggets
Yeah.
about TypeScript's history and how it kind of skyrocketed to fame.
You know what's fascinating is that TypeScript really tackles one of the big pain points
Yeah.
that developers have been feeling with JavaScript,
Okay.
especially when working on larger, more complex projects.
Okay, so before we get ahead of ourselves, though,
Yeah.
let's break down exactly what TypeScript is. The source describes it as a superset of JavaScript,
Yeah.
which sounds a bit technical.
Sure.
What does it actually mean in plain English?
It basically means that TypeScript takes everything that's already great about JavaScript
Okay.
and adds a layer of what we call static typing.
Okay.
It's like giving JavaScript a superpower to handle the complexity of modern applications.
Okay, so it's not about replacing JavaScript entirely.
Not at all. Think of it more as like an enhancement.
Okay.
You see, with plain JavaScript, the type of data a variable holds
Okay.
can change during the execution of a program.
Mm-hmm.
This dynamic typing can be flexible,
Yeah.
but it can lead to unexpected errors,
Ah.
especially in larger projects.
So it's like playing a game where the rules can change mid-game.
Exactly.
That could get pretty frustrating.
Exactly. And that's where static typing comes in.
Okay.
So with TypeScript, you declare the types of your variables up front,
Mm-hmm.
and that allows TypeScript to act like a strict referee,
Okay.
catching any potential errors during the coding,
Yeah.
rather than letting them slip through and cause problems later.
Okay.
It's a huge advantage for maintaining code quality and avoiding those late-night debugging sessions.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like having a spell checker for your code,
Precisely.
catching typos before you hit send on that important email.
And the best part is even if you're a die-hard JavaScript developer, there's no need to fear like a steep learning curve.
Okay.
The syntax is really familiar,
Okay.
and you can gradually introduce TypeScript
Yeah.
into your existing JavaScript project.
Oh, that's reassuring. So it's not like learning a whole new language.
Right.
You can kind of ease into it.
Now, one of the things that I find so interesting about TypeScript is its origin story.
Okay.
Did you know that it was actually created by Anders Heilsberg,
Oh, wow.
the same person behind C#?
That's impressive.
Yeah, it speaks volumes about the design philosophy and the level of engineering that went into it.
Wow. Okay. That's quite a pedigree. So from Microsoft to the open source world,
Yeah,
TypeScript has had quite a journey.
it has.
But why do you think it's gaining so much traction
Well,
in the web development community right now?
I think it goes much deeper than just catching typos.
Yeah.
As web applications are becoming more and more complex, the need for better tooling
Okay.
and stricter rules becomes really critical.
Right.
You know, imagine you're building a massive web application
Okay.
with thousands of lines of code.
Yeah.
Trying to manage all of that with plain JavaScript
Yeah.
can feel like navigating a labyrinth blindfolded.
I can only imagine the headaches.
TypeScript's static typing provides a much-needed map.
Okay.
You can track variable types across your entire code base, making it easier to navigate,
Okay.
refactor, and debug complex logic.
Yeah.
This leads to a more predictable and maintainable code base,
Okay.
which is essential for collaborative projects and long-term sustainability.
So it's like JavaScript got an upgrade for the age of complex web apps.
Exactly. And speaking of upgrades, TypeScript doesn't just stick to the old ways.
Okay.
It fully embraces all the modern JavaScript features
Okay.
you know and love,
Yeah.
from arrow functions to async await.
Okay.
It's like getting the best of both worlds.
Now that is what I call a sweet deal.
Yeah,
But, I'm also wondering about the potential downsides.
sure.
Every technology has its trade-offs, right?
Of course.
Is there anything we should be wary of with TypeScript?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
It is important to be aware of both sides of the coin.
Okay.
While TypeScript does bring a lot of benefits to the table,
Yeah.
it does introduce an extra step in the development process,
Okay.
the compilation step.
Okay.
You see, browsers can't directly run TypeScript code,
Yeah.
so it needs to be transpiled into plain JavaScript first.
That makes sense.
Mm.
So there's an extra step involved.
Right.
How does that affect the development workflow?
Well, modern tools like
Yeah.
Babel
Yeah.
make this process pretty seamless. Most developers won't even notice it as part of their daily routine.
Oh, okay.
It's a common practice in modern web development, so it's not a major hurdle.
Okay, so it's an extra step, but not a deal breaker.
Right.
Now let's unpack some of the specific features that make TypeScript so appealing.
Okay.
The source mentions optional static typing
Mm-hmm.
and type inference.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on what these actually mean for a developer like you?
So optional static typing is really cool because it lets you gradually introduce type safety into your projects.
Okay.
You can start with just a few type annotations in critical parts of your code
Okay.
and then expand as you become more comfortable.
So you don't have to commit fully from the beginning.
Exactly. It's like a dial you can adjust
Okay.
to your comfort level and the complexity of your project.
Okay.
And then there's type inference,
Yeah.
which is like having a super smart assistant working alongside you.
Okay.
As you write code, TypeScript can often infer the types of your variables automatically.
Wow.
This saves you a lot of time and effort
Yeah.
and makes your code cleaner and more readable.
So it's like TypeScript is saying, I got your back.
Exactly.
I can figure out some of these types for you.
Exactly. And this is just the tip of the iceberg.
Oh, why?
TypeScript offers a ton of other features,
Okay.
like interfaces, generics, enums, and more.
Okay.
These features all work together to create a more robust and
Yeah.
predictable development experience.
It sounds like TypeScript is packed with features.
It is.
But before we dive into each of those,
Sure.
let's take a step back
Yeah.
and look at the bigger picture.
Okay.
How does TypeScript compare to JavaScript in terms of its strengths and weaknesses?
Sure.
When would you choose one over the other?
That's a great question. It all really comes down to the specific needs of your project.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all situation.
Exactly. For small, self-contained projects or quick scripts, JavaScript's flexibility and ease of use might still be the best option.
Okay.
But for larger, more complex applications, especially those involving teams of developers,
Yeah.
TypeScript's strength in terms of code quality,
Okay.
maintainability,
Yeah.
and tooling
Yeah.
become invaluable.
So it's like choosing the right tool for the job.
Exactly.
A hammer is great for nails, but you wouldn't use it to screw in a light bulb.
Right.
You need to assess the complexity,
Yeah.
the longevity of the project.
And the level of collaboration involved to make the right call.
Okay.
But in the world of complex web applications, TypeScript is becoming the go-to choice for many teams.
So it's like TypeScript is the heavy-duty machinery for large-scale construction, while JavaScript is the handy toolbox for smaller DIY projects around the house.
Exactly.
Both have their place,
Yeah.
but you wouldn't build a skyscraper with just a hammer and a screwdriver.
Exactly. You know, it's interesting how TypeScript's journey kind of mirrors the evolution of web development itself.
Yeah.
As we're building these increasingly complex applications, our tools need to keep up.
That's a great point. It's like we're constantly pushing the boundaries of what's possible on the web. And languages like TypeScript are rising to the challenge.
Yeah.
So let's talk about where TypeScript is being used today.
Sure.
The source mentions quite a variety of applications,
Okay.
some of which might even surprise you.
One area where TypeScript is really shining is in front-end web development.
Okay.
It seamlessly integrates with popular frameworks like Angular, React, and Vue.js.
It sounds like TypeScript has become the go-to choice for these frameworks.
It has. But
Yeah.
why is that?
Well, as you can imagine, building modern interactive web applications can get pretty complex.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on behind the scenes.
Right.
TypeScript provides that much-needed structure and type safety.
To manage all of that complexity,
Okay.
it helps ensure that different parts of your application are working together harmoniously.
So it's like having a conductor leading an orchestra,
Yes,
making sure all the instruments are playing in sync.
that's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And it's not just about keeping things organized.
Right.
TypeScript also helps catch errors early on in the development process, which saves you a ton of time and frustration later.
That makes sense. It's like having a safety net while you're performing a high-wire act.
Exactly.
You're less likely to fall and break something.
Exactly.
Okay.
And TypeScript doesn't stop at the front end.
Okay.
It's also making waves in back-end development,
Okay.
particularly when paired with Node.js.
So it's a full-stack language,
It is.
capable of handling both front-end and back-end tasks.
Yeah.
That's pretty versatile. What kinds of back-end applications are we talking about?
Well, think of things like web servers, APIs, microservices. These are the backbone of many modern web applications.
Right.
And they often involve complex logic and data handling. TypeScript's ability to enforce type safety and provide better tooling makes it a really valuable asset for building robust and maintainable backend systems.
It's like having a solid foundation for your house.
Exactly.
You want to make sure it's strong and stable before you start building the walls and the roof.
Precisely. And TypeScript's reach goes even beyond traditional web applications.
Oh, wow.
It's also being used in mobile app development, especially with frameworks like React Native and Ionic.
So you're saying I could potentially write an entire mobile app using TypeScript?
That's right. These frameworks allow you to build cross-platform mobile apps using a single code base.
Wow.
And with TypeScript, you get all those benefits we've been talking about. Type safety, improved code quality, better tooling. It really streamlines the development process and makes it easier to create reliable and performant mobile apps.
It sounds like TypeScript is breaking down barriers between different platforms.
It is.
You can write code once and deploy it everywhere. That's pretty powerful.
Absolutely. And let's not forget about the community behind TypeScript. It's incredibly vibrant and active. Developers all over the world are contributing to the language.
Wow.
Creating libraries, building tools, and supporting each other.
It's like a global network of TypeScript enthusiasts all working together.
It is.
To push the language forward.
That's a great way to put it. And this strong community is one of the reasons why TypeScript has such a rich ecosystem of libraries and frameworks.
So it's not just about the language itself. There's a whole universe of tools and resources built around it.
Exactly. And this ecosystem makes TypeScript even more powerful and versatile. It allows developers to choose the best tools for their specific needs and create a customized workflow that suits their preferences.
Now, you mentioned Angular earlier.
Yes.
I know that's a pretty popular framework.
It is.
How does TypeScript fit into that picture?
Well, Angular is actually built entirely with TypeScript.
Oh, wow.
It's a full-featured front-end framework that's designed for building complex and scalable web applications. And TypeScript plays a central role in making that possible.
It sounds like Angular and TypeScript are a match made in web development heaven.
You could say that.
They complement each other perfectly.
You see, Angular's emphasis on type safety and its robust tooling align perfectly with TypeScript's strengths. Together, they provide a powerful platform for building modern and maintainable web applications.
But what about React?
Sure.
We talked about how TypeScript can be used with React as well.
That's right. React itself is written in JavaScript, but it has excellent support for TypeScript. Developers can seamlessly integrate TypeScript into their React projects to enhance code quality and leverage the benefits of static typing.
So it's like adding a layer of security and stability to your React code.
Precisely. And there are even dedicated libraries like @TypesReact that provide type definitions for React components and APIs, making the integration even smoother.
So whether you're building a single-page application with React or a full-fledged enterprise application with Angular, TypeScript has got you covered.
Absolutely. And it doesn't stop there. On the back end, frameworks like NestJS are gaining popularity for building scalable and maintainable server-side applications.
I've heard of NestJS.
Yes.
It's kind of like a younger sibling to Angular Day.
You could say that NestJS is heavily inspired by Angular's architecture and design principles. It takes advantage of TypeScript's strengths to provide a structured and well-organized foundation for building backend systems.
So it's like bringing the best practices of front-end development to the backend.
Exactly. NestJS promotes code reusability, modularity, and testability, making it a great choice for projects that value maintainability and long-term stability.
It sounds like TypeScript is the glue that holds together all these different frameworks and libraries.
It is.
Allowing developers to create a cohesive and powerful web development ecosystem.
That's a great observation. And it's not just about the big players like Angular, React, and NestJS. There's a vast and growing ecosystem of smaller libraries and tools that cater to specific needs within the TypeScript world. For instance, TypeORM is a popular object relational mapping library that simplifies database interactions.
So it's like having a specialized tool for every task. Making your development workflow more efficient and enjoyable.
Exactly. And this ecosystem is constantly evolving with new libraries and tools emerging all the time.
It is.
This rapid innovation is a testament to the dynamism and creativity of the TypeScript community.
It's like a never-ending buffet of delicious code treats.
Yes.
But before we get too carried away with the excitement of all these libraries and frameworks,
Sure.
let's take a step back and consider the practical implications of using TypeScript.
That's a good point. It's all well and good to talk about the theoretical benefits, but let's see how they translate into real-world advantages and potential drawbacks.
Right. So let's start with the good stuff.
Okay.
The source highlights some pretty compelling advantages of using TypeScript. What are some of the key benefits that stand out to you?
One of the most significant advantages is improved code quality.
Okay.
TypeScript's static typing acts as a safety net, catching potential errors during compilation rather than at runtime. This leads to more reliable and maintainable code.
So it's like having a built-in quality assurance team.
Yes.
Constantly monitoring your code.
Precisely. And this early error detection can save you countless hours of debugging and frustration later on.
That's a huge win for any developer. But what about the tooling?
Right.
You touched upon this earlier. How does TypeScript enhance the development experience from a tooling perspective?
Well, TypeScript's integration with modern IDEs, like Visual Studio Code, is phenomenal.
Okay.
You get intelligent code completion, which understands the types you're working with. Right. Refactoring tools that make large-scale changes a breeze.
Wow.
And debugging capabilities that pinpoint issues with precision.
It's like having a superpowered coding assistant by your side.
Exactly. These tools make the development process so much smoother and more efficient.
Yeah.
You can write code faster, with fewer errors, and with greater confidence.
That's what we all dream of. But let's talk about scalability.
Sure.
How does TypeScript help manage the complexity of large-scale applications? We've talked about this briefly.
We have.
But I'd love to hear more about your personal experiences.
Well, I've worked on quite a few large JavaScript projects in the past. And let me tell you, managing the complexity without type safety is like trying to herd cats.
Right.
TypeScript's static typing provides that much-needed structure and discipline. You can define clear contracts between different parts of your application, ensuring that everything works together harmoniously.
So it's like having a blueprint for your code.
Precisely.
Making it easier to understand, modify, and extend over time.
Precisely. And this structure becomes even more crucial. When you're working on a team of developers, TypeScript helps ensure code consistency and reduces the risk of introducing breaking changes as the project evolves.
That's a huge advantage for collaborative projects.
It is.
It's like having a shared language and a set of rules that everyone on the team can follow.
Right.
But let's be realistic.
Okay.
No technology is perfect.
Of course not.
And TypeScript is no exception.
Of course.
Are there any potential downsides or limitations that we should be aware of?
Of course. While TypeScript offers numerous benefits, it's important to acknowledge the potential drawbacks. It's about making informed decisions, right?
Absolutely. Let's start with something that's often mentioned as a hurdle for beginners.
Okay.
The learning curve. Is TypeScript difficult to learn for someone coming from a JavaScript background?
Well, there's definitely an adjustment period. Developers accustomed to dynamic typing may find TypeScript static typing a bit unfamiliar at first.
It's like learning a new dialect of a language you already know.
Exactly. But the good news is that the syntax is very similar to JavaScript.
Okay.
And there are plenty of resources available to help developers get up to speed with TypeScript quickly.
So it's not like learning a completely new language from scratch.
Right.
You can build upon your existing JavaScript knowledge.
Right. And once you grasp the core concepts of static typing and how it benefits your code, the learning curve becomes much less steep.
Okay.
In fact, many developers find that using TypeScript actually improves their understanding of JavaScript.
That's interesting. So learning TypeScript can actually make you a better JavaScript developer.
It can.
But what about the time it takes to write all those type annotations? Doesn't that slow down the development process?
It's true that writing type annotations can add some overhead, especially in the initial stages of a project. But it's important to weigh this against the time you save on debugging and maintaining your code later on.
So it's like taking the time to plan a trip carefully.
Exactly.
Instead of just setting off on a whim.
Right.
You might spend a bit more time up front, but you're less likely to get lost or encounter unexpected delays along the way.
Exactly. The time you invest up front in type checking and error prevention often translates into significant time savings later on.
Okay.
And as you become more proficient with TypeScript, writing type annotations becomes second nature.
Okay, that makes sense. It's like any new skill.
It is.
The more you practice, the more efficient you become.
Right.
But what about the compilation step? We talked about how TypeScript code needs to be compiled into JavaScript.
Right.
Before it can run in a browser. Doesn't that add an extra layer of complexity?
Well, the compilation step is a necessary part of the TypeScript development workflow, but it's not as daunting as it might sound. Okay.
Modern build tools and IDEs handle this process seamlessly.
So it's not something you have to do manually every time you make a change to your code.
Exactly. It's typically automated as part of your build process.
Okay.
And with tools like TS Node, you can even run TypeScript code directly in a Node.js environment without explicit compilation.
So it's like having an invisible assistant taking care of the technical details behind the scenes.
Precise.
Allowing you to focus on writing code.
Precisely. But to address your point about complexity, some developers argue that TypeScript adds an unnecessary layer of abstraction.
Okay.
They feel that JavaScript is perfectly capable of handling complex applications without the need for static typing.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that?
That's a fair point. I can see how some developers might view TypeScript as overkill.
Yeah.
Especially for smaller projects.
Right.
Or those where rapid prototyping is a priority.
Right. And it's important to remember that TypeScript isn't a silver bullet. It's a tool.
And like any tool, it has its strengths and weaknesses. The key is to choose the right tool for the job.
So it all comes down to making informed decisions.
It does.
Based on the specific needs of your project and the preferences of your team.
Right.
It's not about blindly adopting a technology just because it's popular.
I agree. It's about understanding the trade-offs, weighing the pros and cons, and choosing the best approach for your particular situation.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the world of TypeScript.
It's great to be back.
We've talked about its features, its applications, and even some of the reasons why it's gaining so much momentum in the web development scene. But before we wrap things up, I want to kind of dive a bit deeper into those potential drawbacks we touched on earlier. And see if we can maybe bust some myths about TypeScript along the way.
I'm happy to clear up any misconceptions. I think one of the biggest concerns people have is that TypeScript forces you to abandon the flexibility of JavaScript. That you're somehow locked into a rigid system. But that's really not the case.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So you're saying it's not an all or nothing situation.
Exactly. TypeScript is incredibly flexible in that sense. It offers what we call gradual typing. Which means you can start incorporating TypeScript into your existing JavaScript projects incrementally. You don't have to convert your entire code base overnight. You can start with the parts that are most critical or where you see the most potential for errors.
So it's like adding sprinkles to your ice cream.
Yeah.
You can start with a few and then add more as you go.
Exactly.
Depending on your taste.
That's a great analogy.
And this gradual adoption process is what makes TypeScript so approachable.
It is.
For teams that are hesitant to make a complete switch, you can kind of dip your toes in the water, see how it feels, and then decide how far you want to go.
Right.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's less intimidating than having to jump into the deep end all at once.
Right.
But one thing I've heard people say is that all this extra type checking must come at a cost in terms of performance.
Sure.
Is that a valid concern?
It's true that type checking does add some processing overhead.
But
with modern compilers and build tools, this overhead is often negligible in practice. And it's important to remember that the time you save on debugging and fixing runtime errors often far outweighs any potential performance impact.
So it's like investing in a good pair of running shoes.
Exactly.
You might spend a bit more up front. But in the long run, you'll save yourself from injuries and discomfort.
Exactly. And there are even tools and techniques for optimizing your TypeScript code to minimize any performance impact. It's about finding the right balance between type safety and performance for your specific application.
That makes sense. It's about making informed choices and weighing the trade-offs.
It is.
But what about the argument that JavaScript is already evolving to incorporate some of the features that TypeScript offers? Do you think TypeScript will become obsolete?
That's a great question.
as JavaScript continues to improve?
It's true that JavaScript is constantly evolving.
Yeah.
And we're seeing more features that resemble TypeScript's type system being incorporated into the language.
Okay.
But I think TypeScript still offers a lot of value, even as JavaScript catches up.
Okay.
For one thing, TypeScript provides a much more robust and comprehensive type system.
Okay.
It's been designed from the ground up with type safety in mind.
So it's like having a professional-grade tool.
Exactly.
Compared to a basic one, you can achieve more with it, and you have more control over the outcome.
Exactly. And TypeScript also benefits from a large and active community that is constantly pushing the boundaries of the language and developing new tools and libraries.
So it's like having a whole team of experts supporting you and helping you get the most out of the language. And this community-driven innovation is one of the things that makes TypeScript so exciting.
It is.
And ensures its continued relevance in the ever-changing world of web development.
Absolutely.
So we've talked about the myths, we've addressed the concerns, and we've explored the future of TypeScript. But now I'm going to turn it over to you, the listener.
Sure.
What stands out to you from our deep dive into TypeScript? Is it the improved code quality, the enhanced tooling, the ability to manage complexity, or perhaps the vibrant community and ecosystem?
Yeah, those are all great points. I'm curious to hear what resonates most with you. And how you see TypeScript fitting into your own web dev journey.
Because at the end of the day, the decision of whether or not to embrace TypeScript is a personal one.
It is.
It's about finding the tools and technologies that empower you to build the best software you can.
Right. And if our deep dive has sparked your curiosity, I encourage you to explore further. Experiment with TypeScript and see how it can enhance your web development experience.
We hope you've enjoyed this journey into the world of TypeScript.
Thanks for listening.
Until next time, happy coding.